Hi, everybody. Welcome to our 12 Principles Learning Lab. And this is the lab where we move toward business mastery together. Woot woot. So hi, everybody. My name's Josephine Hanna, but you can call me Jose. I'm the founder and CEO of Promote Her Business, where it is our mission to promote your business and each other. Say it with me now. Online, offline, all the time. Exactly. And for anybody who's a guest with us today, Promote Her Business is a very unique women entrepreneurs organization. We're a hybrid between a virtual networking group and a year-round marketing and sales training program. So now what we're going to do is take a minute and introduce ourselves to each other through the chat box. So go ahead and put your name, your title, your contact information, your business in the chat box. And this is a really great way for all of us to stay connected in 2021 and beyond. And also really start to build and expand our global network, because you're going to be meeting amazing women entrepreneurs at all these PHB events. And you want to be able to go into your Rolodex and have their names. So make sure to be saving these chats and creating your own PHB global Rolodex. So everybody go ahead and do that now. Boom. And I wouldn't tell you to do something I'm not doing, so I'm going to put mine in the chat box. Okay, boom. Is everyone else doing that too? Does everyone know where the chat box is? Just to triple check. Okay, good. I see Tanya has put hers in. She's with Enlightened Aging, a nurse practitioner. I'm reading what she wrote. Nurse practitioner and caregiver coach. Awesome. We have Marilyn Atterbury here today, who's an avatar master. And we have Stephanie. Stephanie, how do you say your last name?
It's Luaris.
Luaris. So Stephanie Luaris with Heart and Soul Fitness and Wellness, the perfect way to start the year. How many people set weight loss and fitness goals, right? Number one thing for the new year. So woot woot, Stephanie in the house. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move into talking about why we're here. And what is the purpose of our 12 Principles Learning Lab? It's to unite around the 12 principles to promote her business, to move toward business mastery together, and to take action. At PHB, it's not about just being theoretical. How many of you have ever been and you learned something, but you never knew what to do with it, right? At PHB, it's about really rolling up our sleeves, if I had any, and putting what we're doing into practice month over month. Okay, so all application. Okay, so what's on the agenda? We're going to introduce the principle of this month. We're going to have some interactive discussion around it. We're going to do a member spotlight. And today, Marilyn's name was drawn as our member spotlight. So Marilyn, you're going to be in our member spotlight later. Okay. And then we're going to talk about our action for this month. Okay. So at PHB, we have 12 principles to promote her business. And we never want to overwhelm you. So we're just going to talk about one principle at a time, 1 month at a time, okay? That way, by the end of every year, you will have covered the 12 foundational pieces that every woman entrepreneur needs to think about year over year over year. 1 month at a time, and won't be missing anything foundational that we need to have our heads around. Cool? All right, so this month is the month of January, and we are talking about your power. And this month's principle is so critical because, you know, when you start a new year, especially coming out of 2020, it could feel a bit overwhelming. It could feel like, oh my goodness, I have all these things still on my plate. I didn't accomplish them last year, or I didn't get all the results I wanted last year, or oh my gosh, there's so many new ideas I could do. Any creatives in the room, right? I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, and then I do nothing, right? It could shut you down. So what we want to do is we want to go into the new year with our power as the first thing on our minds, and not just any power, but specifically playing to our feminine power, okay, this year. And, and it's something that some people will strike them as, oh, well, Joseph's saying feminine power. Why is that specifically important? What is feminine power? And really, feminine power has been one of the most undervalued things in history. That's what feminine power is. It's been undervalued. It's an undervalued asset and resource that when we mobilize it, when we tap into our feminine power as women entrepreneurs, we can go places we've never gone in our business because we can tap into being a more authentic, well-rounded version of ourselves, right? So let's talk a little bit about what feminine power is, okay? So if you go to the dictionary, which is always dangerous, and you look up a definition, feminine power can mean any of these things. Stephanie, can you see this on your screen?
Yes.
Cool. Read to us the first 3 definitions of feminine.
Number 1, pertaining to a woman or girl. Number 2, having qualities traditionally ascribed to women as sensitivity or gentleness. 3, effeminate or womanish.
Yeah, so this is a definition of the feminine, because to get to feminine power, we have to understand what feminine is. And with that in mind, just because it's written down doesn't make it true, okay? So according to this definition, it's really that feminine is really associated with women, right? That's what this definition says. But psychology actually tells us this definition is incorrect, beep, beep, wrong. And because women and men and people who are transgendered and people in general have both masculine and feminine, we can tap into either, and we should tap into either as much as we need to get where we want to go and get what we want, okay? So to stereotype and to say the feminine is just for women is not true. And so you can't believe, this is a great thing, you can't believe everything you read. And if you don't like a definition, create your own. It's 2021, and it's about time that if we see things that aren't true in the world as women, we speak up and we step into our power. So this is a year of defining what feminine power means to us, not according to some outdated definition, but according to Marilyn, according to Stephanie, according to Janice, according to Tanya, right? What is your definition of the feminine this year, right? And what's really cool about the feminine is it's not something, sometimes I hear women entrepreneurs say that it's hard for them because many of us have been trained in the masculine, right? Have any of you heard that to get ahead, you have to kill it, crush it, destroy it. You have to compete. You have to go out there and, grab it by the horns, right? right? Like, how many of you have heard all these, game day analogies, right? Like, there's so much masculine in our world that it seems like the only way to get ahead is to be masculine, but it's not true. And it doesn't work for especially many women entrepreneurs who, it doesn't feel authentic to 100% of the time being their masculine, right? Does that make sense to everybody? So I want you to really start thinking about, what does the feminine mean to you? And if you notice you're not in your feminine, that's something that doesn't feel quote unquote as natural to you. It doesn't mean it's not natural to you. What it means is that you've probably been conditioned for it not to be natural to you based on our societal conditioning, right? And just, it's something to play with. It's not saying you should be in it 100% of the time. You should be in it as much as you need to be into it. And what's cool is, this is a really great Marianne Williamson quote. And let's see, Janice, can you see this quote? Can you read to everybody this quote?
Okay, let's see, it's gonna be a little difficult. Feminine power isn't something we go out. Oh, here it is. Okay. Feminine power isn't something we go out and acquire. It's already within us. It's something we become willing to experience, something to admit we have.
Beautiful. Let's give Janice a 1, 2, 3. You rock. You so rock. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's something we already have, right? So I want everyone to just take a minute, close your eyes, get grounded. I'm gonna stop my share for a minute and put both feet on the ground. Close your eyes. Breathe in, breathe out. And I want you to think about, what does feminine power mean to you? What does it feel like to you? It's a very loving energy. It's a very soft energy. It's a very beautiful energy. It's a very exceptionally powerful energy. When you're thinking about your feminine, think about what you're doing in your head. Think about when you feel the most powerful, when you're in your feminine. What kind of tasks are you doing? How are you speaking to people? What are they saying back to you when you're in your feminine? What is your biggest strength in your feminine? All right, everyone take another deep breath in and breathe out. Beautiful. So let's just take a moment and everybody say one thing, just take 15 seconds or so. We're just going to go around, just say your name and say, what's coming up for you right now when you're in your feminine. What is that like for you? Right? What is that like for you? So you can recognize when you're in it and when you're not, because that's another thing that's really important, is how are we going to be in our feminine more? Joseph's saying, be in our feminine, but how are we going to do it if we can't distinguish it, right? So I want you to be able, it's visceral, to be able to feel it, and it feels differently to all of us, right? So let's start with Janice. Janice, tell us, how does it feel for you to be in your feminine?
For me, it feels loving, is soft, supportive, caring. That's what it feels like for me. And it's more natural than the masculine for me. But I have to use the masculine more, seem like right now. But at any rate, it's more about feeling for the other person, feeling what they're going through. And you feel the same way. So it's able for you to reciprocate it back because you can actually feel them. That's what feminine feels like to me.
I love that. Thank you. And how important do you think it is in business for other people to feel like you get them, or you care about them, or you're in their world? I mean, how important do you think that is, right? Like, so I think what Janice is bringing up is just a very business savvy point. It's not just a touchy feely, just it feels good, but it also is something that when you're tapped into it, it's something that can really help you relate better to people, and business is a people skill, right? So I love that. Janice, that was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Marilyn, how about for you?
Creative, juicy, responsible, and in service.
Awesome. All right, Stephanie, how about for you?
Just owning my space and not shrinking back, not feeling self-conscious.
And I would love it. So first, Stephanie, are you coachable?
Sure.
Cool. Never coach somebody who is not coachable. That's the first rule of thumb for all our coaches or wannabe coaches out there. Okay. So one thing that can empower you when you're talking about your feminine is to speak in the positive, as opposed to it being what it's not. Tell us what it is. Does that make sense? Because otherwise you're ruling things out, but you're not clear in your own head what it does feel like. You just know what it doesn't feel like. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us again. So what does the feminine feel like for you, Stephanie?
I'm gonna have to think on that some more.
Cool. So you think on it more, and I'm gonna recommend not only to think on it, but to feel it. Everyone put your hand on your heart, and once again, just feel into it, because that's part of the feminine. The masculine is in your head. The feminine is in your heart. Okay. Tanya, are you with us, my dear?
Yes.
How does the feminine feel for you?
Funny you asked. It's exactly where I am right now. So, sorry, that's not working. So for me, the feminine, when you first asked, I definitely felt it, like, in my core and in feeling grounded. But it also feels compassionate and nurturing and inviting and inspiring, right? Like, that's really the space I am, even with my work, right? It's how do I impart my wisdom and have people want to bring themselves into it, as opposed to me constantly chasing after or reinforcing a message, or, as you said, needing to assert myself so strongly because I'm getting pressure from the higher ups, right, to do certain things. And so it's a good reminder of the balance of, like, I will get it done, and I can still be inviting and receptive to listening to the barriers of colleagues and, like, where are they, and not feel like, even saying that, I just feel so much better than being like, by the way, you need to get this done by the end of the day, and if you don't, you need to call me, which is definitely, where I could go if I were my boss. So yeah, it's inviting and nurturing and supportive, and
Awesome. Let's give each other a 1, 2, 3. We love each other. Ready? 1, 2, 3. We love each
other.
Oh, beautiful. All right. And we can only do that because we're willing to step into our feminine power. If this was masculine, we wouldn't be giving each other virtual hugs and love, right? Boom. Yeah. I mean, and even 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, we rock it is more of a masculine energy, so this is the month to play with, the feminine and see where we want to do it more, where we want to do it less, right? Because it doesn't always make sense to be in masculine. It doesn't always make sense to be in feminine. And what I've noticed, though, is historically and in 2021, women entrepreneurs still underestimate and underplay the feminine in situations where it could best serve them to get more business and better market and create better relationships. And that's why I really want you to be thinking about, you know, the feminine, right? Because it's also an energy of attraction, right? That's the feminine. It's all about attracting. And, you know, and it's important to know what energy to step into when. You need to know when you're in the energy of masculine versus feminine. And then there's also a certain intentionality that I'm encouraging all of us to take on about when we're in our feminine versus in our masculine, as opposed to just being in default mode, right? And I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to call myself out on this, okay? Oh my goodness, this was maybe like maybe a decade ago, I would say. It's been a while, but I was part of this coaching program, and in it, I was with a bunch of creatives, and I had an accountability partner, and we'll just call her Lynn. Okay, so my accountability partner was Lynn, and Lynn was writing this children's book, and she's an executive creative in New York, and she never had time to write this children's book. And so she was really excited, you know, and she had me as her accountability buddy. And so we were together for a full year, and she had been procrastinating on this children's book for like, I don't know, 13 years or something. And I was like, okay, my goal, I want to empower my partner. And my goal is she's going to get this children's book done. And, you know, and then I had my goals, right? And so by the end of the year, I was pretty proud of myself, because she had done it. She had published it. She'd become actually an international #1 bestseller in children books. And I was like, yeah, I'm an awesome accountability buddy, right? So it's the end of the year, and we do this final check-in, and we say to each other, you know, what was it really like? And, you know, do we want to stay in contact with each other in the future? You know, it's the end of the program. And I'm thinking she's going to give me raving reviews, right? This is just peer to peer. And so she's like, you know, Joe, she's like, I'm just going to be honest with you. And I'm like, okay, it's coming. I'm going to get some really glowing remarks. And she goes, I would never, ever choose you to be my partner again in the future, ever. And I was like, why? You don't like results? What's your problem? You know, so I'm like in my masculine already, right? And she said, you know, every time that she brings up her children, I would say, no, we need to bring it back to your book. We're not talking about your kids right now. We're talking about what we're doing right now. You know, what have you got done? You're using your children as a distraction in this conversation. Bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. And I was so in my task, which is masculine, and I wasn't in my relationship. I had 100% turned off my relationship mode, not even thinking about it. And I turned into her like biggest taskmaster, which got her results. It's not to say the masculine can't get you results, but I lost a friendship over this, that she wouldn't even recommend me to anybody because she thought I was so obnoxious. And, you know, and it's something, you know, it's embarrassing, and I'm calling myself out on this, but I'm doing it for a reason, because that's what happens. That was my wake-up call. I had never had such a big wake-up call on not being in my feminine as when she told me that, right? And so this is a really great time for ourselves to call ourselves out on, you know, what we're doing. And when we are, you know, what I would call hardlining it and commanding and manipulating and competing, and there's not enough room for all of us in the group, and, you know, scarcity thinking, right? Like that, you know, that's something we want to pay attention to, right? And if I had been more, if I could feel into it, if I could feel into energy more when I was in that relationship, I could have told myself that, oh, you know, this conversation doesn't feel like, there's something off. Even though she's making progress, it doesn't feel feel like a friendship. It doesn't feel like a relationship. But I was so in my mode of not feeling masculine versus feminine that I couldn't even feel when the relationship had, not only gone off track, I mean, it was totally derailed, right? So I really want women entrepreneurs to learn from my mistakes, right? Like, and to turn on one, being able to feel what your feminine feels like, and also be like, I'm in a situation now. Do I need more masculine or do I need more feminine, right? Like, and practicing, and the other part of it is practicing turning up our feminine more. Like, when in doubt, at least this month, I'm going to put this as a rule of thumb. When in doubt, go to your feminine in January, right? Like, and if it doesn't work, you could try it out a different way for the rest of the year. But for January, I just want you to try out being in your feminine more, right? Like, just a little more love, just a little more caring, just a little more listening, just a little more empathy, right? Like, and I don't know how you possibly would not get more business by doing that, really. Like really, years ago, and I'll tell you this also as a marketing person, is, years and years ago, it was all about hard sales and running to the back of the room. And if you don't do it now, you'll never get it. And scarcity mentality. But that's just not how it is in 2021. It's not as effective. In fact, it's not as effective. And so that's why we've moved to not only liking, but loving things on social media, right? Having more companies than ever, not just care about their business, but give back to the community. That's, caring, that's feminine, and it makes you more marketable because you show you care about the community, and the community cares more about you, right? So I want you to think about this, the feminine, not just from a wooey, touchy-feely place, but from a business perspective, right? Like, as you're thinking about what do I do in this situation, right? So let's go back into this, and I want you to think about, share my screen again, boom. I want you to think about, when are you in your feminine and when are you in your masculine? Okay, and I want you to start to notice it let's start with your business, because at Promote Her Business, we're especially paying attention to business, right? So think about specifically, when are you in your feminine? When you're, let's say you're writing something, that's a marketing piece. Are you writing it in the feminine or are you writing it in the masculine? Is it really going to, who is your audience? Is your audience more likely to relate to the feminine or to the masculine, or in what proportion, right? Like, think about it, because you're creating your avatar, right, of who you're talking to. And the more you can speak their language, the more they'll buy into what you're saying. And part of their speaking their language is understanding how much they resonate with the feminine versus the masculine. If you're approaching them with the wrong tone, even if they could get the results, they're not going to work with you because they don't like you, right? Like, that's, at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, right? You're giving them results, but you're not building a relationship where they want to work with you in specific, right? So think about that. Or when I notice this a lot with women entrepreneurs, when they go from having a one-on-one, or what we call at PHB a win-win, they're one way, when they're doing a networking with you, and then they go into sales mode and they're like a totally different person. Have you ever sat with somebody like that? You're like, where did you go? Are you like 3 different people? And then they're back after their sales pitch. You're like, wait, who am I talking to now? Right? And it's funny, but like, I want you to look at that for yourself, right? And sometimes it's appropriate, but sometimes it's weird. It's actually weird, right? Like, are you just operating by how you think you should? And oftentimes what I have found also, especially, I can attest to this, especially with people in direct sales. There's a lot of people, and I love direct sales. I'm a fan of women making money however they decide to make money. Some people are creatives. They love to create things from scratch. That's me. And then there's other people that are like, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I like using a duplicatable system, right? And especially for those people who are, not reinventing the wheel, using the system, they often have a lot of trouble with duplicating what their upline is doing and getting the same results. And often that's because they're trying to be their upline as opposed to be them and still get results, right? And so that's why you also want to look at, for you, what is your ideal ratio? Not like what somebody else is doing. Their way of being gets them results, but the reason someone works with you is because of you, not because you're a replica of somebody else. Otherwise they'd work with that person, right? Does that make sense to everybody? So, okay, so we're going to go around and we're going to take some shares on, let's start with our masculine. Okay, so everyone, I want you to feel into your masculine, right? Like, get stuff done, crush it, kill it, destroy it. There's only so much business for everyone. Okay, so are we all in our masculine? Okay, ready? We're in our masculine. Tough it out. So, okay, so when in business do you find that it's good to be in your masculine, right? Like, when does that work for you? So let's go around and take some shares. Raise your hand if you would like to share. Marilyn, go.
Well, I'm not really strong on the masculine. It's something that I continually develop. But basically, I think the strongest place where I am is in being accountable and responsible to myself. I follow up with my prospects. I am organized. I think that's about it, actually, Joe. You can coach me too. I'm coachable, but I think it's mostly in my organization and in my follow-up, and pretty much complete my to-do list on time. And so that's where I exercise my masculine.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I think to piggyback off of what Marilyn said, it's a great energy to be in when if you're resisting something, what you resist persists, right? And it's easy if you're in your feminine to be like, well, I'm just gonna go with the flow and do it when I feel like, and it never seems like you ever really feel like it, right? So if it's something you really need to get done that you've been resisting, then adding the ingredient of some masculine to just get it done is not a bad idea, right? So we're not saying that you're doing your feminine at the expense of your masculine, but we're trying to distinguish when you should do which for yourself, and to also, play up the feminine more, just because it's something we don't usually use as much as we could as women entrepreneurs. And statistically, and research has shown that if we use it more, we can get more done and, be happier, have happier clients, and probably be happier ourselves, right? But let's keep talking about the masculine. So Stephanie, okay, ready? So I want you in your masculine. Tell us when you used your masculine in your wellness business. So Stephanie's with Soul Fitness, Heart and Soul Fitness Wellness. Okay, go ahead.
I don't know. That I have to, I don't know. I don't have a lot of clarity on that.
Okay. And and this is a good one to think on, right? Like we talked about how the masculine's in your head and the feminine's in your heart, right? Like, so notice one way that could help you, Stephanie, and you're going to have this just flood into, just because you can't think of this at the second, it's in the back of your head, and you're going to start to notice it more and more this month, because now it's in your head, right? And so what I want you to notice it is not as like this is the right answer, but more when you feel you're in your masculine. Like for me, I notice when I'm in my masculine, when my body is a little more rigid and I'm talking a little more clear and concise and abrupt, and there's like a certain forcefulness in my tone. Those are some clues to me that I'm in my masculine, or I feel like I'm pushing myself to do something, or I'm trying to get someone to do something, right? There's a certain forcefulness like around it. So just start to notice when you're in that energy, right? Okay, cool. Let's take one more share. Janice, how about for you?
When I'm in my masculine, everything that you said about my stance and everything, and I set clear boundaries, and I don't venture from those boundaries. Like time wasters and stuff like that, I eliminate them. I'm really rigid. But what I did find, Jose, is that I needed to up the masculine, because what happened is I was too trusting. So I needed to up that. So I had to regulate it, because by nature, I'm more of the feminine. But it doesn't always serve me well. I just have to add that in. So I'm learning now to up the masculine when it comes to making decisions and asking more questions and being more pushy about certain things. So that's my experience so far.
Awesome, awesome. Let's give everybody a 1, 2, 3. You rock. Awesome. In the masculine. Oh, we should do it in the masculine. Okay, hold on. Ready? Get in your masculine energy. Ready? 1, 2, 3. You rock.
Rock.
Okay. Janice, that face. Okay. And sometimes, now I'm going to talk about when the masculine can limit us a little bit, right? Like even with decision making, because it's not always clear cut that every time you make a decision, you should do it from your masculine, right? But you're only going to know, right? This is just, we're going to play with masculine and feminine all month. So this is not like a one and done conversation, right? But there are times that actually the masculine can really limit possibility, right? Like, because the masculine is very rational, it's very logical. And you look at, let's say, JFK, right? And JFK said, we're going to put a man on the moon, right? And so at that time, I mean, that was unheard of. Nobody thought that you could do that, not in the time frame JFK was saying. But the reason that it was done is because it didn't make sense logically. They didn't have the scientific advancements or the teams in place, or nothing like that. So logically, we would have never gone to the moon if we logicked it out. The reason we went to the moon was because JFK felt it. He felt it. He moved past reason. He was unreasonable. He challenged people to be unreasonable, right? And that's where you move from just having, let's say, a product or a service to a movement, or to do something much bigger, is, where it's most important. When you talk about your dreams, when you talk about your visions, it can be a little dangerous to just be in your head, because that could really limit where you can go with your business and your life. And it can make you feel stifled, and I have to be realistic. And it's good enough if I just have one customer, and you know what I mean? Or whatever that thinking is, right? Like, as opposed to coming at it from your heart space, right? So what I would say to everybody with decision making to consider, and try this out, figure out if it works for yourself. This is what works for me. I don't know if it works for you, but what works for me is when I'm creating ideas, I always do it from my feminine. And then once I have my idea, then I bring in my masculine, right, to work out the details and see how soon I can do it, and who do I need on my team, and all the tasky stuff, right? But I don't let that tasky logical brain limit me from being like, well, there's no way to go to the moon at this point, so I guess we're never going to go to the moon. I mean, what kind of circular logic is that, right? You never do anything new, right? Like, just because you can't do it now. So that's, something to consider. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our feminine. So when are you noticing that you're in your feminine? So everyone just take a minute, take a deep breath, breathe out, chill out, just get in your flow, feel a little vulnerable, smile a little. Don't take it so seriously, right? Like, be in your feminine. Okay, so when do you notice that it really works in your business to be in your feminine? Or where do you notice in your business that you're more likely to be in your feminine? Or where do you want to be in your feminine more in your business? Okay, so let's just go around and talk about that. Who would like to share? Tanya, we haven't heard from you in a while. Are you there?
Yeah, here. I'm working. So, well, I think Josie, me is like, I've actually been quite flow, right? I trust in my creativity and I trust in connecting. And to your point, right, it's like even I haven't mastered with sales, right? And necessarily enrolling people to even be open to a conversation with me. And so that balance of when I feel like I've really grounded myself and I trust what I'm saying, that I can be more open to just being curious and being empathic, and taking my time, right? Like with the conversation. I mean, that's just one aspect, and I have found that feels better, but I've had to like ask for help, right? Or get a little bit of extra assistance to understand, how to even approach conversations with this, less focused on the outcome, right? Less focused on the fact that it actually converts into a sale and more out of the fact that like, I really genuinely want to know people. Like, I mean, yes, it's a balance between success and like right now, I really just want to hear people's like stories and situations and their greatest urgency right now. So the feminine has like let me detach from how do I hear them from a way of like convincing them to take a program or to buy a product.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. And and something to note is when you're in your feminine, I think, Tanya did a great job of pointing this out. It's really about being in your flow and being willing to go where the conversation takes you, right? It's not about, you don't get extra credit for saying everything in your script. I'm going to say that again. You do not get extra credit from saying everything in your script. In fact, you get marks taken away from you because it's not about being interesting. It's about getting them interested. And you do not know, just because you're a woman and your audience is a woman, trust me, not all women are the same. You have no idea what they really want. You might think you know what they want. They might have even put something on the assessment that seems like that's what they wanted, but that's what they wanted at that time. And things have changed between the assessment and when they talk to you. Have you ever been in that situation, right? But if you are just going off of your assumptions and taking it a certain way and not opening it to where they want to take it, then that's how you lose out on business. And, that's a great, example. The other thing I want to say about the feminine from a, sales marketing perspective is that, if you are doing, sometimes we act like, if you're having a sales conversation, and I'm not saying, Tanya, this is not what I'm saying about you, I'm just saying this in general, is sometimes women entrepreneurs say that, it's like you can't be in the feminine and still have a sales goal. And that's absolutely not true whatsoever. I'm going to give you an example of how you can do both, how you can be in the flow and have a sales go. So if you were totally in your masculine, okay, and you had, let's say, a sales script, being in your masculine would be, you know, making sure you covered everything in the order that you said, you didn't miss anything, you kept the conversation on track, you know, it's this forceful, rigid kind of, you know, you're in it and you covered all your bullets and you're forcing them along this certain path, right? It's just a more forceful energy. You can also do it from the feminine, and the feminine is more like you have an intention, right? You have an intention to make sales, right? Like, because if you can't see it, you can't do it. And there is such a thing as just having a conversation totally derail you. And then you forget you're even in a sales conversation and it turns into a really lovely friendship, but that's not why you were having that conversation, right? So it is important to keep the intention in your head at all times, right? Because that kind of navigates in the background. And at the same time, while having that intention and writing it down and looking at that intention before you have your sales conversation is responsible, right? It's not being feminine. But then, you know, having some talking points, but not being so scripted is also feminine. Feminine is not like give up everything and just do everything off the top of your head. Just because you have some talking points doesn't mean it's not feminine. Where it becomes not feminine is when you get really rigid and you're not willing to go their way. You know, you're not willing to take the conversation where they need to take it for the purpose of the conversation, right? Does that make sense to everybody? So go in with an intention. Definitely have an intention of the conversation and definitely have some talking points. Know when you're getting off track, but also let them listen to them and listen. You know, the feminine is not just listening to what they say and repeating it back, but it's actually hearing what they're really saying behind what they're saying. That's what's going to really win you more business. Is, you know, the first step is, yes, you're able to actually even repeat back what they said, which is, you know, 1,000 times better than most people are able to do in a conversation. But the next level of relationship is really not just being able to parrot what somebody says, but to really get it, right? Like really get it and take it deeper and have them walk away with something deeper because you really got them. Does that make sense? And the last thing I'll say with the feminine in that same spirit is to check. Checking is part of the feminine. The masculine is more assuming, it's more not admitting we're wrong. It's, you know, trying to look right at all times. We're an expert, we're a professional. If we don't know everything, then we've done something wrong. No, like in the feminine, it's the opposite. You know, nobody, I believe, as a coach, as a consultant, I believe that nobody knows my client better than my client, not me. It's very masculine to say nobody knows my client better than me, right? That it's egotistical and it's wrong. I'm just going to flat out say it's wrong because your client doesn't even know your client. You spend your whole life trying to figure yourself out. Are you with me on that? How would I know my client when my client doesn't even know my client, right? So from the feminine, it's checking, and it's checking in with them to make sure that you actually understood their communication to you. That doesn't make you weak. That makes the conversation stronger, you know? And if you misheard something or misunderstood something, then you could say that. That shows them that you are there for them. You're not there to prove yourself right, but you're there to make sure you really get them. That's what it communicates when you mishear something or you double check something. It doesn't communicate to them that you're weak or you don't get anything. It shows them you're a better listener, right? Does that make sense to everybody? So check in with them. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to do a member spotlight moment. So Marilyn was chosen as our member spotlight for today. So Marilyn, go ahead and say your name, say your business, and say one thing you want more women entrepreneurs to know in January. What's the most relevant thing you want us to know in January? Go ahead.
My name is Marilyn Adipari. I teach a course in teaching people tools to deliberately define themselves and their lives, and to eliminate the distractions and saboteurs that get in the way. And what I feel is the most important thing for us as women to do is remember there's this old saying that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And that world is not where we're living in right now. And so the more that we can bring in the intention to be present with people, even if we have differing agreements, to really listen, like Joe said, and listen with understanding, knowing that so many of us are indoctrinated and a lot of our actions are coming from that place. And lovingly just understand, be there, and be an example of cooperation instead of competition, and listening instead of arguing, and just being a friend, I could talk all day, but I know we don't have all day, but to me, that's really what I feel, that we need to bring this into this very masculine world that we're dealing with right now.
Awesome. I love that. You know, and in that spirit, you know, something that Marilyn does is, as an avatar master, she has this awesome personal development and professional development tools that you can learn and understand to understand how your mind works, right? Like if you think of your mind as a computer, it's like, what's going on? Have you ever wondered, like, why the heck does my mind keep obsessing over this? Or why can't I just get into, I want to be positive, I want affirmations to work, but they never do, right? Like she can help you with all that stuff. So if you want to understand how your mind works, definitely talk to Marilyn Atterbury and check out Avatar. I love it. So Marilyn, make sure to put, if you haven't yet, put another plug in the chat box about any, you know, programs or trainings that you have coming up. Cool.
I will. And I don't see anything from Janice. And Denise, I don't know what you do, or I would love to know more about you. Maybe we could meet offline sometime, but I don't have any way to get in touch with you. So if you could put it in the chat, I would love to get to know you better.
Awesome. Yes. So Janice definitely put it in the chat box. And at the beginning, what we were saying is use the chat box, save the chat box, start to create your own global Rolodex this year for 2021. You know, just because we're virtual doesn't make it any less relevant for us to have our own Rolodexes, right? So create your Rolodex, okay? Definitely said that from my masculine. See, that's what's cool. It's like, you know, you start to notice it more, right? Like when you're in what energy, and then you're like, huh, was that the most effective way I could have been? Or do I want to try it out a different way the next time I say, you know, to go into your Rolodex and build a Rolodex, because it could be a really empowering thing to do and a great way to lock arms with other supportive and purpose-driven women entrepreneurs. Right? So just kind of try it out both ways, right? And do it in your own speaking. I'm just doing a demo, right? Okay. So one thing to note is, I'm going to put this here, is, you know, how do we make this really practical this month, right? How do we take feminine power and implement it more into our business, get some more practical examples of what it means? I know something like Stephanie brought up is for many women entrepreneurs, I mean, me included, and sometimes it's hard to feel what it is in the moment, right? And get our heads around it and distinguish it for ourselves, right? Like that's the norm, that's not the exception. And so at PHB, what we did is I have done research. Actually, I started researching girls and women and how we operate and women in the world when I started in Girl Scouts when I was 5. And I started putting on events for women when I was 7. And since I was 7, every year since I was 7, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am now, I've been doing things with women and girls and, you know, my whole life. And so over my whole life, I've come up with 9 types of feminine power, which you can employ in your business that I see really working for women entrepreneurs when they can really get their heads around what these types of powers are. And then they can intentionally institutionalize these 9 powers into their business as best practices. Okay, so what I recommend that you do this month is to go to your member dashboard. And if you're a guest with us today, something to note is we do have a free 30-day trial membership. So as a next step, you can sign up for our free 30-day trial membership. Okay, but you can go to your dashboard. I'm just going to show you. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to share my screen with everybody. Boom. Can everybody see my screen? So these are the 9 types of feminine power: spending, gossiping for good, caring, collaborating, flowing, emoting, role modeling, being vulnerable, and creating. And when you get your head around all of these 9 feminine powers, it can totally transform not only your business, but your being into your most authentic, powerful self that's attracting more of the clients that you want to attract in, because you are being the type of client you want to attract. Does that make sense to everybody? And so these are the 9 ways to, the 9 powers to really step into. And then they also have very practical applications and how you're applying them when you're interacting with other women entrepreneurs in our community, when you're interacting with your clients, when you're doing prospecting or marketing. So definitely go into your back office, go to your member dashboard. So I'm going to go here, and you see right here at the top of the dashboard, there's something called the 12 Principles to Promote Her Business course. You're just going to click enter the course, boom. And there's an introduction, and you can go here to the table of contents at the top. And here you can see all the powers that there is for principle 1, your power to spend, power to gossip, power to care. And I highly recommend that you watch all these videos by the end of the month. They're short videos, and you can get your head around them, and you can start implementing what's in these videos in your business right away this month, and then figure out how you can also apply it for the rest of the year as best practices. All these videos also have specific exercises attached to it, so that it goes from just being in your head to really being something that you can implement in your business, right? It moves it into the practical. And as a short-term, the biggest short-term assignment for this month that I'm going to give everybody is in, let's see, hold on, give me a sec. So in your power, the very first one,
Okay.
you see here, it says the feminine and masculine baseline assessment. So your job this month, the biggest task this month, is for you to figure out when you're in your feminine versus when you're in your masculine, and be more intentional about when you're in what energy, right? And what ratio, what is your ratio of masculine to feminine? So what I want you to do is I want you to take this assessment, because this is going to be your baseline for where you're currently at. And then you could see what's working, what's not working. And then by the end of the month, you might be like, oh, you know what? I really want to step up. Right now I'm 60-40. I'm 60% masculine, 40% feminine. And, maybe what I'm realizing this month, as I've been playing with being more feminine, is that now I want to make it more 60% feminine and 40% masculine, right? And I'm not saying that's the right ratio, because for each of us, we're kind of in different stages of business. We have different personalities. Not all women are the same by any means. So, you have to do what's right for you and your business. But the only way to know what's right is to actually, figure out where you're starting from, so then you can decide where you're going. Does that make sense? Okay, so cool. So I'm going to put the link to our free trial membership in the box for anybody who's a guest today. And for everybody else, what I want to do is just go around and I want you to say what was your one biggest takeaway from today. So let's start with Tanya. What was your biggest takeaway from today?
My biggest takeaway is to keep doing, I mean, in a sense, like keep doing what I'm doing, like watching the videos, being mindful of where I'm balancing masculine and feminine, and definitely engaging more with women and, you know, in this space and generally speaking. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Janice, how about for you?
I think my biggest takeaway was recognizing the masculine and the feminine, because I was just reacting and I didn't know what zone I was in. So I think that's my biggest takeaway, that I can pay attention to it more and be more intentional.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
All right. And let's do Marilyn. Go ahead.
Well, I feel really enriched with the relationships. Everyone shared so openly and it felt really good. It felt very, very authentic. And I love hanging out with women. And I really appreciate all of your viewpoints and the additional viewpoints, Jose, that you would offer to us based on what each one of us said. And it felt like a real feminine gathering together of energy. And I loved it.
Aw, thank you, Marilyn. All right. And Stephanie?
I'm with Janice, just that realization of, you know, that when we're in that different feminine and masculine energy.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So we're going to do it from our masculine first, and then we'll do it from our feminine. Let's give each other a 1, 2, 3. You rock. And let's do it from our feminine. Ready? 1, 2, 3. We love you. We love you. Ready? One more time. 1, 2, 3. We love you.
We love you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, so we're gonna wrap up here. Make sure to save the chat to start creating your global Rolodex in 2021. Create a system around that, right? And then also the assignment, just once again, is to watch the videos in your member dashboard around your power. There's 9 feminine powers, and I put the link specifically to the feminine and masculine baseline in the chat box. You do have to log in. When you're a member, when you become a member, you get a login, and you just have to use that login from now on whenever you go to the dashboard. All right, and with that said, our next event is going to be, our global networking circle, which is coming up next Thursday at 11 a.m. Okay, so global networking circle next Thursday at 11 a.m. And that's where we're going to build some more win-win relationships with each other and continue our conversation about feminine power. All right, till then, keep promoting your business and each other, online, offline, all the time. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.